Yo, Asmongold, what's up, man? My name is Corey Angelot, and I'm here to deliver a message to you, which is to say, why not Lord of the Rings Online? I mean, hey, I'm a former WoW player. There's a lot of WoW players, a lot of the players that I meet on Lord of the Rings Online, and I understand there's a lot of MMORPGs out there, and WoW was the first of its kind, so they're gonna go to other MMOs, but when I look at all the videos that you've reacted to, Asmongold, none of them were about Lord of the Rings Online. Almost no time could I find you even talking about Lord of the Rings Online or giving your thoughts about the game or even trying it. And maybe you have tried it before, but you know what? There's a lot of plans for that game too, and it's still going, and there's a lot of people. Now, I'm going to explain as a former WoW player why I think the game is so important and why people who still play WoW and play other MMOs like Final Fantasy should probably give it a shot. Because it actually has some upsides that Final Fantasy doesn't have, it has a lot of upsides that WoW doesn't have, and that's why a lot of WoW players are going there. And not only that, but it's not like a super fantasy-like game like Final Fantasy. It's got a bit more realistic aspects. I mean, how many movies and games are based off of Lord of the Rings to begin with, right? I mean, crazy. Not just WoW, right? I mean, WoW technically stole from Lord of the Rings too. I mean, right? You said it yourself. WoW is good at stealing ideas from other games. That's what they should do. That's how people should compete. So anyways, the first thing I'm going to get into is graphics, right? Because you might say, well, the thing I don't like about Lord of the Rings Online is the graphics. Well, is it really the graphics? Have you tried putting it on Ultra and playing it yourself? I think it's very different playing the game yourself versus looking online for some footage. The game has been around for nearly 15 plus years, which is crazy to think. I mean, WoW has been around for 20 plus years, so they can be pretty competitive into what they got at this point. And not only that, but the company that produces Lord of the Rings Online, the producer and many people within the team are talking about doing a major update in revising the graphics, making it look super detailed, more than it already is, because in my opinion, I mean, I don't really care that much about graphics. I care about gameplay. I care if the game is good. I mean, right? What's the number one complaint you hear from people who don't play World of Warcraft? They're like, well, the graphics are not that good. Well, it's cartoonish, so it feels more swift. And maybe, you know, WoW still has that superiority over a lot of different games for being that swift type of combat, like let's just get it going, and you have these big PvP arenas, which you don't really get in Final Fantasy. You do get it in Guild Wars 2, which I think is a fantastic game that also doesn't get enough attention in my opinion, but Lord of the Rings Online I like for some very special reasons. It's, you know, Guild Wars 2 is a very good game. I'd say that comes second on my list of good games, but Lord of the Rings Online, I do have to put it number one, and the reason why is because I get a special vibe out of playing it. Sure, there's no swimming underwater, there's no, you know, underwater combat like you have in Guild Wars, and you don't have 100 versus 100 man wars, and but Guild Wars doesn't have housing, right? Guild Wars is more fantasy related, and not that that really matters to me, and obviously it's appealing to a lot of the Final Fantasy players, but Lord of the Rings Online just has this nice vibe to it. I'm obsessed with Lord of the Rings and its the whole theme behind it. I know that you're a fan of the movies as well, and there's a TV show coming up, and that's why they're going to do even more revamps for this game that, you know, I think people should be more aware about. So aside from that and the Amazon Lord of the Rings series, I mean, you have this long leveling process, which again, Guild Wars doesn't really have. I mean, you have 140 levels right now, 140. I mean, my goodness, it can take you a long time depending on the speed that you're going at, you know, depending on the server, etc. But you can do it all for free. I mean, the game is entirely free to play, just like Guild Wars, except maybe even more free. I didn't have to spend really anything. I only paid for VIP once, and it just gives you some extra things. It doesn't really have like a pay-to-win type of model. The biggest thing for me, above all things, not the combat or anything like that, which I know people may complain about, is the community. The community is what matters to me. I mean, people are making live music in-game, and they're playing it all day long. Every Saturday, I'm in South Bree on Arkenstone server, and you can expect that there's this group of musicians that call themselves the Flock of Moosin, and they're there every single time, and they're doing music requests, and they're writing their own songs. It's amazing, and they all play different instruments. You can't do that in any other MMORPG. Okay, in addition to this, you got nice crafting systems which you can level up with. A lot of people use that. I mean, imagine a good crafting system. My gosh. housing and decor. You can actually decide where you want to put your decor, and you have to get it throughout many different things that you gather within the world. Of course, you can even craft those items too, and you can trade it with one another. You can visit each other's neighborhoods, all that jazz, which of course that is more a part of Final Fantasy. But then you also have mounted combat. I mean, again, this is amazing to me that you can actually fight on your mount. How many people know this about Lord of the Rings Online? I don't know. But they still have talent trees as well, which I know a lot of people who play WoW are very familiar with. They love talent trees, and WoW got rid of all that. I don't know why WoW gets rid of everything that made the game succeed, but that's regardless, that's a whole different scenario. But you could also dye armor any color. Another thing that you can do in Guild Wars, I'm not sure about Final Fantasy, but you can dye any armor in the game to any color you'd like, and you could have transmogs at any time. You don't have to go to a special NPC, and of course there's outfits, and there's even emotes, hundreds of them, that you can actually unlock through quests, etc. There's a lot of just small, tiny details that go unnoticed within the game that I just wish people would look at, because it's just amazing, right? I got this shirt, Minstrel, Heart of the Fellowship, right? Because I actually play a minstrel in the game. Never thought I would play the class that can actually produce music and heal people with music and do damage with music. But as silly as that sounds, it's actually quite funny. I mean, they're yelling in the middle of the battlefield, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, not gonna lie. As a WoW PvPer, and people saying, well, the PvP and other MMORPGs aren't as good, Guild Wars has good PvP. I agree. But Lord of the Rings Online, I'd say give it a shot. You don't have these super flashy, animated type of spells going on that you don't have any clue of what's going on, like in Final Fantasy. And you still have the same exact layout that you have from WoW. So talk about even being more player-friendly than going to Final Fantasy from WoW. I would make the case that Lord of the Rings Online is definitely player-friendly when it comes to switching games. And, you know, again, the fact that this is not being talked about within Asmongold's community is why I made this video, and I hope more people can see it, regardless if Asmongold sees it or not. It doesn't matter to me. So another thing, though, and I'm going to take this as a plus, there is no flying mounts, right? I said there's no swimming, there's no flying. I actually consider that kind of a good thing. And the reason why is because, you know, Asmongold and a lot of WoW content creators of the past said, well, flying kind of takes away from seeing other people and making it more of a journey and an adventure. I mean, now anytime I go anywhere in Lord of the Rings, I see people. They're on the roads, they're taking, you know, paths, and even the so-called flight paths are just horses that you can bring from place to place. So it's amazing to me that you can do that, and then I could see all the people that pass me by. It's kind of like a traffic system where you have one car going this way, you're going that way. I like that. I think that's really cool. You can have kinships, which is essentially your guild, and I just like the community aspect. That's the main reason why I play the game. The main reason why I think MMORPGs in general excel. You know, sure, there's toxic players in different MMORPGs, but they're not as toxic as FPS players. The reason why MMORPGs really excel, in my opinion, is because of the social aspect of the game. That is the aspect that WoW lost, and that's why it lost to me. I had a guild of 3,000 plus people in a server. Yes, it was a private server. Let's not talk about that on Twitch. But it was amazing. We had tons of people, and we would go to Gurabashi Arena, and the guilds would come in, and we would destroy them, take over the arena from them. It was amazing. That was what I wanted to see, you know? So that is what I really like about the game. You go into the taverns and there's music, and you just get this nice home old feeling, like the 1800s, 1700s, and maybe you don't like that 1776 Kekona. No, maybe you don't like that. That's fine. Maybe that's not your style. But you know, there's also a lot of girls that legitimately play this game, like Final Fantasy. And I think it can cater to any audience. I mean, you got pets and cosmetics and all the same things you got in WoW. Right, it's basically the same things. But you have more, and that is what makes it really cool. And the fact that you can visit neighborhoods. I'm actually going to start throwing house parties. You know, I've actually created a kinship where we're just going to throw parties. We're going to have our own kinship house, and it's huge, and we can all contribute toward it. We can all do crafting for each other, and we're all going to party, go over to each other's houses, and who knows what we'll do there, right? Gashi Hyper or something, who knows. But yeah, and there's a lot of content creators on YouTube as well that maybe you guys are unfamiliar with, but like Louis7, for example, posts all the time Lord of the Rings content and talks about, is the game still worth playing? I would recommend checking out those videos. There's many others, and I'm certainly not one of them. I'm here to simply say, hey, Asmongold, check it out. WoW community, don't forget about this game that's 15 years old that doesn't really get talked about that often. People are finding it. They're finding it mostly through Steam. I would recommend you probably install it through the web browser and just give it a shot. Play it for yourself. Don't necessarily watch what it looks like online. I think you really got to immerse yourself within the game yourself and experiment with all the things that you can do. So that's my little recommendation, a little thing I wanted to share. I'm sure there's things to dispute. As always, Asmongold, I appreciate your criticism and critiques. I know everybody would probably love if you entered politics, but thank goodness you don't, because let's be real, nobody likes politics. Screw politics. If you look at the other content on my channel, you'll probably understand why. Anyways, peace out, Asmongold. See you later.